So this is where we get into the um, interview that O'Kelly and Kaczynski colluded with Fassbender and Wiegert and with Ken Kratz, because he's the one that approved this May 13th hearing without a lawyer. To this day, I still don't understand how this was ever allowed. Ultimately, Kaczynski got thrown off of Brendan's case because of this May 13th interview. So how could any of that be allowed to be played in court? I just don't understand how Fox has ever justified that, or, moving on up through the process of Brendan's appeals. I don't think it was really argued in the Seventh Circuit, but I do think I'd have to go back and I'm probably going to do this maybe on an open mic or something. Reread Duffman's 91-page brief. I do think he discusses it. Kaczynski got thrown off the case, but ultimately Ken Kratz is the one that approved that interview, and nothing happened to him, and I do not understand that.
Well, I think we saw, Jack, earlier in the previous episode how Wiegert and Fassbender tell Brendan that you better tell your mother before she hears it from somebody else. And I think you're exactly right that that call was, I think, in response to essentially Wiegert and Fassbender telling them that telling Brendan that Brendan better tell Barb before she hears it from them, or else something is going to happen that he's not going to like. They scared him into that. That phone call was totally provoked by the action that Wiegert and Fassbender had with Brendan, I think on that very day, earlier in that day. And it doesn't surprise me that Brendan can't even remember it, to the point where he said, well, Mark told me that I better tell my mom. So that's what happened out of that. That would have been a better thing to say than what he is saying, and coming off as a big liar because he can't remember that particular facet of that interaction.
Yeah, it was at the end of that hearing, that interview, coercion session, as I often call it, with when he was on May 13th. It was at the end because, if you remember, Wiegert says, well, when are you going to tell your mom? And Brendan says, well, she's supposed to come up tomorrow. Don't you think you should call her and let her know? Because, basically he's saying, if you don't, I will. I actually think he might have said that. So that prompted that phone call. He goaded him into it. There's no doubt about it. You're correct. But the whole thing itself being set up, this entire thing was set up by Kaczynski, O'Kelly, going to, I think a phone call happened to Fassbender, maybe Wiegert. I don't remember the exact series of calls, but then ultimately it was Ken Kratz's decision to allow it without his lawyer. It's like, man, what are you doing? Kaczynski gets thrown off the case. Nothing happens to Kratz at all legally, and it should, in my opinion, it should have, because he's the prosecutor, and I don't care if he was after him or not to get a conviction. His job is bigger than that. He has to make sure everything is right and fair for both sides. And he didn't do that, and he was allowed to get away with it. And then on top of that, Fallon is allowed to play sections of this phone call to his mother. So I don't know. I think it's just bad business.